Okay, so you are in for a treat because Aaron Hicks is going to tell us more about his experience being on community supervision. Aaron, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit more, but if you could you can start anywhere, but just kind of tell them, what was your experience when you were on supervision? And then of
Yeah.
course you can talk a little bit about what it's like now.
So I'm Aaron Hicks. I'm part of the reentry team for Nehemiah. Um, Currently, I run a group called Man Up. Um, I also work in the houses as well with Rebecca, not RCA. Um, and I also work with people in the courts with their agent, their parole agent or probation agent. Hold on one second. I got to keep this door closed because it's a little, you got to close the door. Sorry, you guys.
That's all right. It's a reality these days.
Right. So yeah, that's the a little snapshot of some of the things I do. I So you kind of lead me in this, Doc, where what all you want them to know as far as being on supervision.
Sure. If you could talk about when you got out last and just kind of the
Mm-hmm.
experience of figuring out what to do, getting connected with community, and then some of the complications that you had.
Yeah. So I was incarcerated from 1998 to 2010. When I went in, I was 25. When I came home, I was 37 going on 38. My daughter, she was 3 weeks old when I went in prison. When I came home, she was 12 going on 13. Um, and it was that transition from being incarcerated to back into the community probably was one of the hardest transitions. It was actually worse than being in prison, I have to be honest with you. Um, and the hard part about adjusting, because there's so much stuff you lose time. Um, like I said, my daughter was 3 weeks old. I'm looking at a 12, almost 13-year-old child. So the dynamics change. My mindset had changed. There was just a lot, and just adjusting. I never had been on the internet before. I didn't get on the internet until 2011. Um, Never sent the email out before. It's just little stuff like that. Those things are all, what most people think is just normal or natural for someone who's been incarcerated. Little stuff like that, it affects you. I had never been to a grocery store where you can just do self checkout. So that was weird. Like everybody texts. I wasn't used to that. Text messaging. My last phone was oh goodness.
Primeco?
A Primeco, yes. It was a Primeco. So that was the phone I had. So, smartphones. I never even saw. I mean, I saw like commercials and stuff, but outside of actually seeing it. But I think the hardest part about being on community supervision is really dealing with your agent. That's probably the hardest piece, because you don't just have one agent. Sometimes you have a lot of different agents, and I kind of went through one agent after another one. But what was difficult was like, so when I came home, I was told two things. One, I was told that my daughter wasn't really my daughter. So that was super hard for me. We have the exact same name, just like you see my name on the thing. That's her name as well. It's just spelled, mine is with an O and hers is with a Y. So, but they told me my daughter wasn't my daughter, and they basically told me they wanted me to live like I was a bachelor. And at that time, I was married. So it was super difficult to like deal with like community supervision. There was a lot of rules. Like, so for example, one of my rules was I couldn't go on State Street. I didn't have a crime on State Street, never had a fight on State Street, never stole anything on State Street. I could go on Langdon, Lake Street, all the streets around it, but I couldn't go on Lake Street. I'm sorry, I couldn't go on State Street. The problem with that was um, almost not every, but almost every bus goes on to State Street. So I would either have to get off the bus and try to go around and recatch another bus. And if I didn't obey those rules, then I would go to jail. Everything, anytime you don't obey a rule, like you going to jail. It don't matter what it is. That's their first remedy. You go to jail, and we'll figure out everything else from there. When Another thing is when I came home, I had a place to go live, but they said I couldn't live there, and they said I couldn't live there because my daughter lived there. I had no crime against my daughter at all, but nevertheless, they still would not let me go home. To stay with my wife and my daughter, which again was super frustrating. Um, it wasn't no rhyme or reason. It wasn't a reason why I couldn't go on State Street. Like it wasn't. Your guess is to this day as good as mine. I have no clue. I couldn't use the internet. I couldn't get on computers. I had no crime with computers or none of that didn't even exist actually. So people had probably like the internet, but it was like on a real, like you might have been really educated or something like that. It ain't like now how everybody has the internet. That was in 98. So you can kind of get an idea of what the picture kind of looked like then with the internet. So it was those type of things. And it really was just difficult to be a person. It was difficult to be acclimated back into the community. You lived your life on pins and needles, literally. And yeah, I don't know who influences the rules. They believe that whatever unit you on, you need to abide by those rules and regulations. And they use a big paintbrush, and they basically make everybody abide by the same rules and regulations. So I don't know the rhyme or the reason behind the why piece. I wish I could tell you guys like this is why they did this and this is why they did that, but none of that. It didn't even make sense. So those things were super frustrating. And to be honest with you, the truth is, after going through that so much, you're really just ready to go back to prison. I don't even want to deal with like being in the community or society or none of the above because it's the complexity of it was horrible. And so as time went on, when I got connected to Nehemiah, that probably was one of the greatest blessings for me because I had support. Having support is huge for individuals coming home from prison or jail, to have people wrapped around you, but also people who can advocate on your behalf. Because if you don't have that, I promise you, the likelihood of you succeeding in the community is damn near slim to none. I currently, even as we speaking now, I currently have on an ankle bracelet. But while I had on the ankle bracelet back in 2010, so I've been on the bracelet since 2010, first and foremost. Let me say that. And I've never like went a day without being on this bracelet. They make me pay $240 a month for the rest of my life. So that's super frustrating because I was given basically I got a life sentence without a judge or a jury. And if you notice, a lot of this stuff is very monetary. Everything is based on dollars and cents. And they literally eat you alive. Like you start so far in the hole when you get out. So, trying to play the catch up game is almost impossible unless you get out to you filthy rich. But without that, like it's hard living and it's hard recovering from being incarcerated. It is a process. You do need support. You do need, you know, individuals. You need to have education behind a lot of this stuff because people don't know this stuff. They don't know, like, I mean, think about this for a minute. Every single day since 2010, I've worn an ankle bracelet. I equivalent, I, I, I equivalent that to the ball and chain because that's basically what it is. And the difference is they make you pay for being on it. And like I said, they make you pay $240 every month. Um, so since I'm currently not on any supervision, I don't have a PO or agent or none of the above. However, because I have on this bracelet, um, at any given, if they feel like I'm not abiding by the rules and regulations, they can't just put me in jail, but what they can do is charge me with a Class H felony saying that I'm not abiding by their rules and regulations, which ultimately will put me back on supervision and it'll start the process all over again. So it's like you're never really free. They never really take their hands off of you. When you get incarcerated, the judge, they tell you, like, you know, basically they let you know that you will no longer be able to use a firearm. And they let you know that also you won't be able to vote until you're done with being on probation and parole. Um, but what's interesting about that is I've been done since 2017, yet they still have never really, they've never given me my liberties back for, you know, to be completely and wholeheartedly free. And so that's a frustration within itself. If, for example, my bracelet dies, um, I'll be at home and then police will show up knocking on the door. This is what they use. This is what they use our tax dollars for. And the police just comes over to the house, and it's usually not one police, but two police cars. They pull up, they knock on the door. When they knock on the door, only thing they ask you is, can I see the bracelet on your ankle? They want to make sure that it's still on your ankle and that you haven't tampered with it. And so a couple of days ago, I was bold enough to just ask them, like, does that make any sense? Like, but as long as the Department of Correction has that connection to the police station, they're able to do that. It makes no sense whatsoever. And again, tax dollars pay for that. That's not a crime. I haven't did anything wrong. I haven't disrespected anybody, none of the above. But nevertheless, though, two police cars show up with about two officers, sometimes three. And all of this is designed to, I have to just show them my bracelet, nothing else, no more, no less, no handcuffs. Um, so again, it's still some frustration. Being on supervision, literally, we use this term, we use the term trauma-informed care. But I marvel at that. The very people that utilizes this term is the very people who are instituting this trauma. And I feel like they're not being called on it. You know, they use all of these pretty terms as if everything is under the basis of we want to protect the community. We want to keep the community safe. Well, I have an issue with that because I don't believe that you're keeping the community safe. I got people coming home. I'm working with men right now that's coming home that been incarcerated since they were 16, 15. And they coming home at the age of 40, 44. No life experience. And my question to you guys, but also to them as well, if you have a person that's incarcerated from the age of 15, 16, and they're in their 40s, almost 50s, like, what are you producing? What do you expect may happen? Like, and then you putting them back in the community. And we understand clearly that, you know, at least 85 to 90%, maybe even 95% of individuals that get incarcerated, they're going to get back out. But we don't put as many resources for individuals coming home. We put more research, more resources on incarceration than we do individuals coming back home. And you have to question that mindset because it's an agenda behind that. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Someone asked you about if it was hard to find a job, and then I know kind of related to that, how did you find Nehemiah?
Yeah.
Those are a little intertwined.
Okay. I might have missed, I didn't see it, but yeah, so actually actually one of the people on our staff helped me find a job. The other Rebecca, she gave me my first job. I was excited about my first job. I worked at the Cold Center. I didn't make much money, but I didn't care. I was only making like 13 cents an hour in prison. So any job I had, I mean, and then I was gone for so long that it was like just having a job, period. I appreciated it. But I came across Nehemiah through Jerome Dillard. He was running a organization called Voices Beyond Bars. And so me and him got connected. And he was already connected to Fountain of Life. And he kind of made the intro to me to Pastor G. And me and G hit it off really well. And Nehemiah was building at that time, and he thought I'd be a great candidate. So he started the Man Up program, and then I just continued the program. So it's like I was in it, and then I started to facilitate it. And so that's kind of how my relationship started with Nehemiah. It was through Jerome Dillard.
Aaron, can you tell the story about that job where you had that snafu with the supervisor?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, totally. So, let me backtrack on that story. So what's interesting is, so I met a judge. Actually, I was just on a call with him, myself and Karen, but his name was Nicholas McNamara. He's awesome. And so we built a rapport. I asked him a question. My question was about, because he talked about himself and all of what he did. And he asked about, the community. And I asked him a question, and my question was strictly about how many Blacks come through your courtroom. And he said about 80 to 85%. And then I asked him about how many Blacks do you actually know? And the room got quiet, and he was honest. He said he didn't know none. And I said, well, how about I be your first Black friend? And we chuckle about it to this day. Fast forward and in time, once we built that relationship, I had a job.
Let me just add for the people, this was hilarious because Aaron did this. I mean, it was a public forum with the judge at the podium, and Aaron put him all the way on the spot. So go ahead. I just had to throw that in.
Yeah. So in that, as time went on and it fast forward, I was working for a company called Traffic Cast. And it was amazing company. I didn't even know like traffic like that, but a guy helped me get in there. And as time went on, because I'm on this bracelet, and while I was on supervision, anything that goes wrong is while you're on supervision, they can send you to jail. It don't matter what it is. If you late, you going to jail. Like if you bip or bop, you going to jail. That's just how they're gonna do it. So they sent me to jail, and I was there for about a little bit over 30 days or so. And I went back to this company, and I asked one of the guys, I was like, man, can I still keep my job? Because I made a lot of money at that job. And he said, yeah, you can keep the job. However, you gotta pay me $150 out of every paycheck. Well, when you're on supervision, like you don't really have a lot of options. Like you're almost under the thumb of whoever. Anybody can say and do anything, and there's nothing you can do about it because you go to jail. Like if you, like anybody that's on this call right now, you can just look up somebody. You can call, get on the phone like right now and say, Joe Blow did X, Y, and Z, and before this night is over, Joe Bob will be in jail, even if it's not true. So this guy, he knew my situation. He knew I was on supervision. And basically, so what I did was I paid him. And I'm just being honest with you. Like I paid him. But I shared it with the judge. And I wanted him to see what it's like for individuals being on supervision. Obviously, his knee-jerk reaction is, you want me to do something about it? But I told him no, because I really wanted him to get a chance to see what it's like for individuals being on. And I know he had never seen anything like this. He saw the money that I would have to give this guy. He knew everything, and he totally could have, like, if I would have said, go ahead and let's press charges, he totally would have did all the above. But it wasn't about that for me. It was more about just allowing him to know, to see through a lens that he probably wouldn't normally get a chance to see through. And so, again, being on supervision, like, it's hard. The likelihood of anybody succeeding on supervision is damn near slim to none. Like, the probability is so low. So my experience with supervision, like, I mean, it's probably why I fight the way I fight, and it's probably why I work the way I work, and I try to work with people the way I work with people, because I totally get it. It's not coming from curriculum. It's not coming from, third party. No, I lived it, and I still live it. And my fight is to get this bracelet off my ankle as well, because I don't think in any way, shape, or form that that's humane at all. You shouldn't have to walk around like that. You shouldn't have to pay a bill for the rest of your life. You shouldn't, like, who does that? I mean, ultimately, that's what it's all about. I'm gonna have to pay them, and so one of the things that I do want you guys to know is, like, the only one way right now that I can get this bracelet off my ankle is I have to move to another state. But I'm from here. I'm from Wisconsin, and I feel like, why should I have to leave where I'm from on the basis of to get this bracelet off? No, I think by rights it should come off of me, because my life is totally different from what it was. So, like, to continue to penalize me, to continue to reinforce as like I'm that same person, I think it's totally wrong. I mean, if you get a speeding ticket, right? I mean, you get it, you pay your ticket, and you keep it moving. We don't keep saying you a speeder, you always gonna, whatever, drunk driving, whatever the case may be. So it's like, that's my fight. You're more than welcome to join in on my fight if you want to, but yeah, so that's my fight. And yes, I can tell you about Man Up. Man Up is it's awesome. It's awesome for this reason. It creates a space where men can be transparent. For me, I can only so long talk about football, basketball. I can only do that for so long, because I want to know the matters of the heart and what can we do to help you get to a better place in life. And so Man Up is just that. We talk about hurts, habits, and hangups, things that men struggle with, and how can we best help you and serve you to get you back in the community, to help you to be acclimated in a way in which you can navigate through some of these systems, but also you can actually get you some roots in the community. And so my goal now, through Man Up, it'll be in some of our houses until, things start to open back up. But I really want to hone in on two parts. So one part is issues of the heart. I'm a strong believer that you can't heal what you won't reveal. And so it's really about creating a space where men can be able to talk about some of those hurts, some of those habits, and some of those hangups, right? But the other part is really, because a lot of programs, we give people, like, at the end of the program, here's a certificate, right? But I feel like it has to be more than just that. So my goal and my heart's desire is to sit down with these men and really come up with a realistic plan so that if they go through this program, then the objective is really to push on how to teach them about home ownership, how to teach them about having a business. We see a lot of the protesting and people tearing up stuff. Well, it's easy to tear up stuff when you don't own anything, right? Super difficult to start tearing up stuff when it's your stuff too, right? So that's really the desire for these houses, for these men, because I see it. These are things that I didn't learn. I didn't know anything about credit score and financial literacy, and I didn't know anything about, you know, what it takes to own a business and how that would look. And I didn't know anything about sustainability. So I really want to be able to give these guys a heavy dose of a lot of this stuff, because I believe it's very much doable. But it takes us as a community as a whole to work together to help these individuals. There's some more questions on there, but I'm not catching them as fast as you
Yeah, the
are.
first one is, there was a quick question about, is there a similar program for women? Nehemiah doesn't have one that's just focused on women. There are a few opportunities in the community, but frankly, there just aren't that many period groups like that in the community. One question, Aaron, what is the first pieces of advice that you would give to someone who just got out to help them stay focused and encourage?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would let them know is you got to get around the right people, places, and things. Like, that's so huge. And for me, one of the things I did, like right out the gate, I went to school, which kept me so busy that I didn't have time to really even focus in on anything but school. I was in school, even though me going to school was a difficult process as well, because during schooling, there was times I went to jail while I was in school. I made the dean's list. I was super proud of myself. The only thing is I didn't even know what the dean's list was. Seriously, too. I had no clue what that meant. But I mean, later on, I figured it out, but I didn't know at that time when it happened. But yeah, I would say go to school and get yourself around the right people, places, and things. Those things are huge. Who's pouring into you? That's super huge.
Yeah,
Is there more?
what's the best way to support people who are going through reentry? And then could you describe an ideal mentor for Man Up?
Okay. Wait, do the first one again. Just do one.
What's the best way to support people who are going through reentry?
Yeah. So I believe strongly the best way you can support people that's going through reentry is walking side by side with that individual. Because really, people coming home, they just need to know somebody care about them. And that's just being the most genuine way I can put it. Like, you don't even know if somebody cares about you. Like, for real. I'm not even playing, like, dead serious. Like, you don't know that. And so when I know that you care about me, guess what? You can correct me. But if I don't know that you care about me, then you can't tell me, like, you can't tell me shit. I can't hear you. I have to know that you care about me. And part of caring about me is being consistent. Because I mean, the only thing that's been inconsistent in my life is incarceration, right? It's not the officers, it's not none of that. So you don't know who's friend, who's foe. You don't know if someone genuinely has your well-being at hand. You don't know none of those things. You hoping, right? You hoping that somebody will actually hear that. You're hoping that nobody has a motive to, like, get over on you, because it happens to you in the work scene. It happens to you in a lot of different ways. And it's not simple. Nothing about coming home from prison to back into the community. Nothing about that is super complex. And for each person, depending on how long they stay and depending on how they utilize their time, plays a big part of determining whether they'll fail or succeed, right? And so just being consistent, that don't mean that you have to have had the same experience I can tell you an experience that we all have had. We all have struggled in some way, shape, or form, right? And that's your connecting piece. It don't mean that you have to have been to prison. It just means that, you struggled, you understand it, and we fall down, but we get back up. And so it's really about staying in a person's ears, letting them know, hey, get back up. Hey, I'm still with you. I'm still, all of those things are, you would marvel at how, and you would marvel how beneficial that is, but you would, when you see the success from it, I mean, it brings you a joy that words can't even express.
How would you describe an ideal mentor for Man Up, or what other things can people do to help support Man Up?
Yeah. So really, to support and help, and an ideal mentor is just people just willing to get involved. Though it's called Man Up, it doesn't mean that women don't come to the group, because they do. Um, we don't go overboard with it, but it's important that women come into, to see what's going on and understand, get a greater understanding. But, for the person who's a business owner, and would want to help people learn about business more, for the person who understands financial things, you got to understand that a lot of these guys is not dealing with a whole lot of finances, but hey, we can figure something out so that they can start to really understand how to manage their money, and how we spend our whole life working for money. So it's really about teaching them how to make money work for them, right? And so for the person who's a homeowner and wants to help someone learn about, hey, these are some of the things that you need to be able to own a home. Hey, we can use all of that, and so on and so forth. Don't have to be limited, to businesses, maybe school, or to the trades, whatever, how to build. We got guys that want to build, but I can just, a lot of times I speak very general, but it be based on things. I didn't know none of these things. I literally was oblivious to a lot of these things. And I didn't have no one telling me and teaching me and giving me, because my mom passed away while I was in prison, and I don't know my dad at all. And that's kind of the common theme for a lot of men, not all of them, but a lot. And so I understand that. And because I understand that, that's probably the reason I speak to these things so passionately.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. I'm going to take it back because I want to tell him a few more things, but thank you so much for sharing your life. I know it means a lot to people to hear from you. So I really appreciate you taking the time on a Monday night.
Thank you kindly. Thank you guys. Appreciate you all.